Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we're discussing the 21st word. In the previous discussion, we read it through first warning. And in this expert of Nursi, we'll be reading about like what it means to pray. And as the question entails itself, like is prayer too much? In the previous discussion, we first discussed like does prayer mean anything to you? Like is it just muscle memory routine that you have to wake up and pray and just go about your day, or is it an integral part of your life? Or we also discussed the physical meaning of it as well. Like is it just yoga or like a physical exercise for you, or does this have like something a deeper meaning to your life? So when we take it as like a routine or muscle memory, the first problem that was pointed out was there is an expectation of the prayer to end. We take the prayer as a journey, but what prayer entails is that as long as we're in here in this world, we have to pray. So one way to go about reforming it would be by reforming our nafsul amara, like the nafs that is the conscious nafs that controls your desires. And it is important to reform your nafsul amara, that you get like fall in love with the prayer and you do it lovingly. And another benefit of it is like once you are purified, you can tell others as well to come to the prayer and what it means to purify your nafs or like reform your nafs. So we'll start by reading the second warning. So Dua, you want to do the second warning reading?
Oh, I think we haven't studied the first warning, did we?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Second one.
Second one.
O my stomach worshipping soul, every day you eat bread, drink water, and breathe air. Do they cause you boredom? They do not, because since the need is repeated, it is not boredom that they cause, but pleasure. In which case, the 5 daily prayers should not cause you boredom. For they attract the needs of your companions in the house of my body, the sustenance of my heart, the water of life of my spirit, and the air of my subtle faculties. Yes, it is by knocking through supplication on the door of one all compassionate and munificent that sustenance and strength may be obtained for a heart afflicted with infinite griefs and sorrows and captivated by infinite pleasures and hopes. And it is by turning towards the spring of mercy of an eternal beloved through the 5 daily prayers that the water of life may be imbibed by a spirit connected with most beings, which swiftly depart from this transitory world, crying out at separation. And being most needy for air in the sorrowful, crushing, distressing, transient, dark, and suffocating conditions of this world, it is only through the window of the prayers that a conscious inner sense and luminous subtle faculty can breathe, which by its nature desires eternal life and was created for eternity and is a mirror of the pre-eternal and post-eternal one, and is infinitely delicate and subtle. Third warning too? Third warning. O my impatient soul, is it at all sensible to think today of past hardships of worship, difficulties of the prayers, and troubles of misfortune, and be distressed, and to imagine the future duties of worship, service of the prayers, and sorrows of disaster, and display impatience? In being thus impatient, you resemble a foolish commander, who, although the enemy's right flank joined his right flank and became fresh forces for him, sent a significant force to the right flank and weakened the center. Then, while there were no enemy soldiers on the left flank, he sent a large force there and gave them the order to fire. No forces then remained in the center, and the enemy understood this and attacked it and routed him. Yes, you resemble this, for the troubles of yesterday have today been transformed into mercy. The pain has gone while the pleasure remains. The difficulty has been turned into blessings, and the hardship into reward. In which case, you should not feel wearied at it, but make a serious effort to continue with a new eagerness and fresh enthusiasm. As for future days, they have not yet arrived, and to think of them now and feel bored and wearied is a lunacy like thinking today of future hunger and thirst, and starting to shout and cry out. Since the truth is this, if you are reasonable, you will think of only today in connection with worship and say, I am spending 1 hour of it on an agreeable, pleasant, and elevated act of service, the reward for which is high and whose trouble is little. Then your bitter dispiritedness will be transformed into sweet endeavor. My impatient soul, you are charged with being patient in three respects. One is patience in worship, another is patience in refraining from sin, and a third is patience in the face of disaster. If you are intelligent, take as your guide the truth apparent in the comparison in this third warning. Say in manly fashion, O most patient one, and shoulder the three sorts of patience. If you do not squander on the wrong way the forces of patience Almighty God has given you, they should be enough to withstand every difficulty and disaster. So hold out with those forces.
So does anyone has any like opening views or any questions for the second and third one that we just read?
I'll just pose a question that came to me, and we can think about that. So in this second warning, it starts by saying, "Stomach worshipping soul, every day you eat bread, drink water, and breathe air. Do they cause you boredom?" And every Friday we come and we eat the dinner that's prepared. May God be pleased with the small little family. And it does not cause me boredom, and it doesn't cause me boredom to eat breakfast or lunch or dinner or second dinner or dessert. I look forward to those aspects of my day. But the need that they fulfill is very obvious to me, right? Like I feel the hunger or even the boredom or other emotions as well that push me to eating. And it seems almost like, oh yes, this is what I need. The push to them feels very effortless. So if we're to analogize between our hunger and the need to eat with the need to pray, what need does prayer fulfill here that I should feel driven towards it, right? That I should be hungry for it as well, if that makes sense.
So you just said that if you're hunger doesn't make you bored, right? But I feel like having the same food over and over again, that causes boredom. So I think right now this is kind of relating to that having doing the prayers over and over again will cause you boredom until you feel some sense of spiritual awakening. I don't know, maybe. Yeah.
I guess like it calls you boredom if you have a choice, right? Like if I have multiple food available to me, or if I have the income to have like the choice, because if you're hungry and you're told this is the only food we have for the month, that food is looking nice. You're not bored of it. You're grateful that that food is there. So then I'm thinking, if the context of it, I guess prayer, then what would that be equivalent to? Like when do you feel that hunger that goes beyond the boredom? Because I think like with food, it's either I'm hungry and I eat what's in front of me. Like I don't get to the stage of boredom because I don't have that option. But if I have the income, then I can get to that stage of boredom because there is options given to me. And I don't really know how like that can apply to prayer though.
No, I see the prayer as maybe first and foremost as a sincere supplication, a prayer to God. and I guess it's what are you praying for? I think if you analyze Surah Al-Fatiha, I mean, it has it in there, right? Ihdina sirata mustaqim. I seek guidance, and that's what the prayer is for me, right? It's a earnest supplication for guidance from the one who can guide.
Brother Vikan has a comment.
So I think people do get bored by eating the same food over and over. And we see, in Quran, for instance, the depiction of Bani Israel when they are saved by Moses, alayhi salam, and they start eating the same food again and again, even though it's like a miraculous food coming from the skies and very interesting. They say, we are bored of eating the same food all the time. And I guess you experience the same thing when you have the same food at home and you have to eat it like the 3 days, 4 days, like you cook, especially when you are, the single, you cook over the weekend and you eat the entire week. It gets boring sometimes. Yeah, chickpeas are exceptions. I guess the question is whether the prayer is always the same or not. Because when we think about the prayer, if we think about the actions, you do the same actions when eating even different foods as well, right? Even food is changing every meal, you do the same actions, like you use your hand, mouth, and so on in the exact same way, but you don't get bored because the food is changing.
But in the sentence, he is referring to bread, water, and air. Like in the example, the author was talking about bread, water, and air, which are not changing. Like it's every day the same bread, same water, same air. And I agree with what you said, but the argument is a little bit different.
Maybe you should continue. I didn't get it.
So the way the author starts is, "O my stomach worshipping soul, every day you eat bread, drink water, and breathe air. Do they cause you boredom?" So he is specifically talking about bread, water, and air. And it is the same bread, same water, same air that you eat. I mean, you can put one day, I don't know, a chicken, the other day, biryani, whatever. But bread is bread, water is water, air is air. And these are the ones that keep repeating in whatever you eat. So this always stays the same. And you do enjoy drinking water. You do enjoy drinking, like breathing air or eating bread if you're eating bread. And I do eat bread with even the rice. So I am the type that eats bread a lot. So that part stays the same. So this is why the author is, I agree, different types of food we desire sometimes, but irrespective of that, there's a part of our sustenance which stays the same, but still we enjoy it. We are not seeking for a change in the type of air or the type of water. Like I would like to have the pure water, pure air. The purer it is, the better it is. So the emphasis in here is that in those, since they are fundamental needs of human, I enjoy them since this need for them is renewing. So human really doesn't search, let me put that much, just to be on the safe side, of like variation of water, air. So that's why the author is saying that prayer is as fundamental as air, breathing air, drinking water. Of course, we can, on top of that, we can talk about also every prayer need not be the same. We can also talk about that on top of this. But to me, it feels like the author is saying that this is your most basic, most fundamental need, or addressing your most basic, most fundamental need as if it's like breathing air, then we can ask the question, is it really? Is prayer, or what sort of most fundamental need of me, like breathing air, does the prayer address? Could be a maybe more relevant question in this sense. But of course, on top of that, we can again discuss whether each prayer is the same or not.
So for bread, water, and air, like if I don't breathe, I'm like, there's a huge sign given to me that like I need to start breathing something in. The same way, if I don't drink for a long time, there's also a sign, there's a physical sign that I'm doing something incorrect and it needs to be fixed if I, but I guess like, what is that sign that because the other two you can see pretty easily, like what you need to do. And I think then my question is like, in prayer, where are the definite sign that maybe is given and I'm just missing them, or do you look for them? Like I guess that's the question then.
I don't know if the signs are as obvious, because I mean, if they were, like, we would all pray without, like, like we would all like want to pray all the time. But later in the second warning, it does talk about how basically like prayer like gives you the sustenance and strength to a heart that is like afflicted with infinite griefs and sorrows and captivated by infinite pleasures and hopes. So I guess like that is your sign that you should pray, like if your heart is afflicted with sorrows. And I mean, we do see people when they're afflicted with pain or they're like going through something, that they do turn to prayer. So that is when they do like feel the need to pray. So yeah, I guess depression.
I think that could be the answer to Sister Aisha's first question as well. Like, what is the need that it is fulfilled? And I think we can read this line that it is the water life of my spirit. So I think when someone is in distress or someone is going through a hard time, through only prayer that you can get that like peace of heart, I could say that thing. So yeah. Dua.
Yeah.
So we have been talking about this with Brother Birkan also, and also with many people actually. Since this is a recurring theme in pretty much everybody's life nowadays. So if you ask someone, how is life going, and then how is your work life going, to me it feels like there's this carrot and I am chasing the carrot, and I never catch this carrot because as I'm about to eat it, they put another carrot which looks nicer, and my life practically even now feels like I am chasing this carrot the whole time. It's in the workplace, it's in the family life, it's in the society life. I'm trying to prove myself to someone so that I'm going to get the carrots. Even if I get it, once I get it, it doesn't look or taste as I expect it to be. But then there's always a next carrot. It never happens like, oh, I found it. Okay. I mean, there's no more chase. Now I can stop and get some rest. This is how my life is going. There's this false hope that I'm going to get satisfaction when I reach that carrot. So this, and I'm trying to fulfill this with like the bad taste of when I get the carrot. It leaves some bad taste in my mouth because it's not as satisfactory as I was expecting it to be. How do I cover up or compensate for this? I'm saying that, oh, but the next carrot is better. So I think the need in there is this bad taste that all the carrots that I eat leave in my mouth, which I am trying to compensate with a next carrot, the hope or the imagination of the next carrot. This is how I'm trying to make it up. But this is why I am living in some anguish for the rest of my life. It's never comfortable. It's never content. Because like postdoc was chasing a type of carrot. Now I am chasing another type of carrot. If I get into another type of job, I am pretty sure there's going to be another carrot somewhere. Even if you get to the topmost title that you can get in your job, let's say you become the CEO of some company, there's always another company to buy, another way to grow your job and whatnot. I mean, not to say that do not look for opportunities in life and whatever, but seeking for satisfaction in them is what makes me live in this like black hole. It just keeps draining me. It doesn't take me anywhere. So signs are always there, going back to the original question. So this dissatisfaction is really the sign in there, and it is really spending my whole days. Like within this week, for example, the people that I work with, multiple projects, all of them expect some deliverable. And in delivering them, what is my motivation? If it is that, oh, if I fulfill this, I'm going to get that, some carrot, which is going to give me satisfaction, my life becomes so stressful for no reason. And there's no outcome that will give me satisfaction, because I have been living the same life for the past 15, 20 years, and I never got the satisfaction that I'm expecting to receive. So what? But still, Monday I'm going to go back and live the same life. So that means something is fundamentally wrong with me. I don't know how it is with you, but it looks like prayer seems to be the key somehow, or at least is there to fulfill this need.
And I guess like on the flip side, I was also thinking like, so one is depression or like being sad or like not being satisfied, but the other one could also be contentment. Because like if I think about like the two main like things that make people like really want to pray, it's like the first one is like if you're going through something, and the second is if you like really been wishing for something and Allah gives it to you and you're just like, oh, I have to pray like nafil to thank Allah for this. So I think like and this also reminds me of when we were reading like the macrocosm microcosm thing, and it's just like, oh, you know, like the universe is a palace, and if it's like somebody has laid out this table and it's laden with like fruit and all these things, and like if you went to a palace like that, you would want to be like, hey, I really want to like meet the host and I want to thank them, like, can I have an audience with them, can I write them a letter? But like the fact that we don't like feel the need to pray perhaps means that we're taking like the blessings that we have for granted, and we're not like conscious of all that we have been blessed with. So I guess like just if you like see the mercy of God, like I guess that's a sign that you should pray, because like I've been thinking of this, like that mercy sort of like weighs on you, like weighs on your shoulders, and it's like when you prostrate, you're sort of like taking that weight off your shoulders.
I don't know. I feel like we're approaching this in a more like I don't want to say secular, but you know, like you're depressed, you go to pray, and like you're supposed to feel better, you know, like, and I don't think it works like that. And maybe I'm gonna say something so personal, but to be honest, when my things don't work, like my experiments, which are like the most important thing maybe in my life, I don't feel to pray. But I feel I feel like, no, seriously, because like people say like, oh, you know, you go to prayer like when you're in need of something, or when you're stressed, when you're depressed. But I think for a lot of people it doesn't work that way. Like you actually
when you're not feeling good and thankful for anything, you don't, why would you pray? Like, so I feel like you feel as you like prayer more like when you feel content, when you feel like really you're thankful for something or so, like, and then if we remember like what we learned about, la ilaha illallah, what does it mean? Then I feel the only way is, how things worked or how things are working is because of like, Allah is doing everything for you. So I don't know. I just like this depression things just doesn't like resonate with me, I would say. But and then I was doing like I don't know, for a few hours maybe, like where salat is mentioned in the Quran, like in different ayats. And it's interesting because like it's always mentioned with the like qimu salat wa atu zakat, like it's always mentioned salat and the zakat in most of the ayats. And then I just found this ayah which it says إنني أنا الله لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدوني وأقم الصلاة لذكري. So the translation, my translation would say, indeed it is me, Allah, there's no God but me, worship me, do your prayers so you can mention me, like dhikri, so you can remember me. And then it hit me the other ayah which says ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. So with the dhikr of Allah, the like hearts come into with security or assurance or something like that. I don't know, it's just my brain made the connection, but I think it's more like about remembrance, and somehow this remembrance will give us peace. And I think even if it's hard to realize, it's hard to recognize that we need this, but at some point I think if like, in a certain level of faith or so, you have to really know or realize that this prayer is really the only thing that is bringing peace to your heart. So I think, and you need that. I would assume you would need that. But yeah.
So I don't think what you're saying is opposed to the idea that one who feels sort of a depressive episode or sadness also goes or might feel the need to prayer. Like, I think you're right in highlighting that, when I face some sort of difficulty, right? If it's a psychological difficulty, I'm like, oh, I need to see a therapist, right? If it's something that goes on, I'll be like, oh, I have to like rant about this to my sister. I go to sources in my life that I feel can understand what I'm going through and offer me a solution. Or even if not a solution, hear me out and empathize, right? And through that sort of interaction of empathy or feeling understood, I can then find sort of solution, even if I don't know the resolution of it, right? And I think the verse that you cited of, only in something along the lines of, in the mention of God, do hearts find rest. It's that when I can offer the contents of my spirit or of whatever situation that I'm going through, my difficulties, to a one I know can and must be able to understand it, then I find ease in it. But it's also practically true, again, in my life, that God is not the first source that I think of for that, right? I'll think of my mom, I'll think of my sister, maybe a pet cat, maybe I'll the world. So I guess that the question is, how do I come to know my creator as the source that would be able to satisfy this need? Because if I felt assured that, with that source, with the creator, I would have the ease that I need in the situation, then it would be very crystal clear to me. I wouldn't doubt having to go there. And I might know it as a sort of a technical truth, right? But in practicality, it doesn't play out that way. So in the same way that, we train muscles to, or train habits to do something, how do I sort of accustom myself to feeling that need to, like, instead of FaceTiming your closest friend or someone who knows you, get you like FaceTiming God, right? how do I get God on my speed dial in terms of feeling? And I guess one thing that comes to my mind is just knowing that whatever I'm going through, like it hasn't spontaneously happened. It hasn't sort of arisen through as just series of, like, today there was some traffic. I was trying to get somewhere and I thought, oh, are you kidding me? Like, this 30-minute trip turned into an hour and a half. And it was like, may God protect us. I saw the car crash and I tried not to be one of those people that, they slow down as you see, because that's the whole reason for the traffic, but completely like just disastrous, car was demolished. Inshallah, the person's okay. But even before that, my immediate response was, oh, are you kidding me? Like, I have to sit through this traffic and whatnot. And then there's some, because you're sitting in traffic and you have time to think. And I usually sit in silence in the car, just silence. I was thinking, well, okay, like, this is not happening randomly. I didn't just come across this traffic. It wasn't just my bad day. It wasn't just my bad luck. Like, it's what and it's also the one that's putting this traffic right in front of me. So no one recognizing or reminding myself of the intentionality behind that which I experience, and that which I experience, or that which I feel in relation to that experience, sort of be to that, I guess. I'll pause there. I guess another question we have for this: do we have infinite griefs and sorrows? If so, what are they? Oh.
May I say something? This will be a secular comment. Just a warning. But Kadir, by the way, she's still like prepared better than you. So she looked at all the ayahs and so on about the sana. So when author talks about the water, air, and so on, they are so fundamental, but at the same time, they are common to every human being. So it's not like that you drink something, right, because you are a Muslim, and then you're discussing why we drink water as a Muslim. This is not the case. You drink water because you're a human being, and there's a need of, like, a humanly need for drinking. And when author talks about the prayer, so although he's talking about a very specific case of like the salah, our prayer, but when he talks about the need, he's again taking the same approach. It's not talking about like, why do we, like, he's not giving reasons on why do we pray this way as Muslims. It's more like, as a human being, do I need to pray? And with pray, you can take anything. Like, it could be the Muslim prayer, it could be something else, whatever. With even water, right? Some people don't drink water. They bring beer, for instance. Like, I know people who never drink water. He, for instance, he never drinks water. He drinks something else with water. But anyway, like, even with water, people may choose to, provide it in different ways. The same way with the prayer, you may choose to provide the need in different ways, maybe, but it doesn't change the fact that it's the same need. So what is the same need? I guess we should be clarified. Otherwise, it starts becoming like we're discussing, why do I pray in this way or in such situations as a Muslim person. But the question is more like, do human beings in general have such a need? And when we look at the way author describes, it seems like they do. Regardless they are Muslims or not, they have their lives in which everything goes away from them. Everything is departing, author says, right? And this is fact for every human being. No matter you are a believer or not, people, the things in your life will die, goes away, like a go away. And then you will have the moments of your life full of, I would say, darkness, full of, like, it doesn't need to be, I am sad. Even in the moments of happiness, when it is a worldly happiness, within this happiness, sometimes you start questioning what is the point. And it doesn't need to be, sadness. Within your life, you realize that the meaning is fading away. And you kind of like suffocating. Right? The life is not enough for you. You cannot breathe anymore. Even if you have the best job, right? Even the most successful people, they would say, I need a break, right? So you would hear stories like the most successful people having time for surfing. Like every week I have to surf. Every day I have to play violin or something like that. And it's not about, being an artist or being a sportsman. It's about having a break from the life. That's what we say we need. From the worldly life is suffocating us. And we need air. And I guess the author is talking about that. As a human being, we need air. And he says this air is for your heart, for spirit. Because it's your spirit, it's your heart that's, cannot handle the departure, cannot handle the meaningless aspects of your life. And this need is a human need.
To answer Dr. Sister Aishanu's question. So you said that what is the meaning of infinite griefs and sorrows here? So we could go back to what Dr. Yusuf was saying, for example, if you don't believe that prayer is the answer to all of your problems, then you're going to place that sustenance, that thing on anything else. And then when you get there, you're not going to be sustained from that thing. So when you're not going to be sustained, there is grief and sorrow in your heart. So I think that is what that infinite grief and sorrow could be. And that is what natural, human beings, every single person of us has. And the way to cure is that supplication towards one's creator. So you can supplicate towards your creator, ask him that he may cure you of that. And that is through prayer, or the way you said it, first do it la ilaha illallah, there is no God but God. Once you obtain that thing, then you go by worshiping your creator, and you can get rid of infinite griefs and sorrows and be captivated by infinite pleasures and hopes.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
I don't know if this is a sign of me getting old, but as I started getting older, seeing white hair in other people, when I look at the mirror, it's I don't look at mirror that much, but yeah, some other people, when I see white hair or their skin, wrinkled skin, it starts hurting so much. For passing of good moments, bad moments, whatever, starts hurting so much more as I start aging. This reality was always there, but it was never hitting close. But now that I started experiencing it for myself, like with the relatives, parents starting to get old, this reality starts hitting further. And all the ambitions that I once had not coming into a fruit so far, even the ones which came to fruition, not satisfying, becomes a burden on my shoulder because I thought that reaching this would be satisfying me. So I guess over time it's accumulating. This makes me tired. Many of the times I find myself saying, oh man, I'm tired. Like sometimes several times a day, I find myself saying that. So it's not a physical tiredness only. Like emotionally, mentally, you get tired. So I think this is I should ask the question, what is it in me? And normally, how do I try to fix that? This is why the author in here, I think, is making a distinction of my physical body and my heart and my soul. So those are the aspects of me that I should ask question to myself, how much do I pay attention to satisfy these? Or how am I trying to satisfy those different aspects of me? So I think this is what is making me tired. And so if I take it back to the very initial question of Daratu, so once it gets so varying, I start saying that give me a break. But until that moment, still, people are just covering up. Like almost every term, one or two of my students send an email in the middle of the term asking for, saying that I'm not able to take midterm, or can you give me an extension in that assignment because of mental health reasons. It's becoming so common nowadays. So that breakup is happening more frequently than ever. But in our lives also, it is happening. So I think the author is reminding me that this is happening because you have been neglecting an aspect of you. And prayer, like the signs is there, the troubles are there. But since everybody is like this, either I don't notice it, or we are not most of the time demonstrating it outside. Like nobody is sharing their sad moments, or most people don't, in Twitter or I don't know, Facebook or whatever. We are sharing our best moments to the world. Humbly, we tell them that we were promoted to a new, nobody is mentioning that they are laid off. So in this world, we are going through those troubles. So how do I remedy this? Author is saying that you should knock the door of the one, the provider, the sustainer. And even there was one nice sentence in there that to the end, he says, so the last sentence, it's a little long, but being most needy for air in the sorrowful, crushing, distressing, transient, dark, and suffocating conditions of this world, it is only through the window of the prayers that a conscious inner sense and luminous subtle faculty can breathe, which by its nature desires eternal life and was created for eternity, and is a mirror to the pre-eternal and post-eternal one, and is infinitely delicate and subtle. This infinitely delicate and subtle part is something that I would like to emphasize as well. As a human, like everybody nowadays is trying to be tough. Like in the olden days, it was males has to be tough because males were supposed to be heroes. With the new currents and whatnot, females are the new heroines, and then they need to be tough as well. So delicateness, there's no room for that. But in every human, there's an aspect of me which gets tired, really. And it's like, okay, your muscle can be tough or you can be strong in certain aspects, but there's an aspect of you which falls apart in the face of death, in the face of like separation. And this is our reality. I have a lot of hopes and I do not get satisfied. And in me, there's an aspect of me which is like a child, still feeling very upset about it. But there's no room in today's landscape to talk about that, because you have to just bear with it, just raise your head and keep walking and whatnot. Like that sort of nonsense is out there. But there's that aspect of me. How am I going to handle this delicate aspect of human being, which is being injured every day because of this dissatisfaction that again and again I experience? So this is why that supplication, knocking the door of all merciful one and telling all my sorrows to him, because maybe I cannot talk about it to Qadir or to Maryam, because I don't want her to think that her husband is not tough, right? But to my creator, reporting that I am needy, I am not able, and I am in need of you. So that sort of as Sister Ashanur was saying, that I am in need of being listened to. So who am I calling though? So I guess this is one functionality of the prayer, that, oh my creator, I am aware, I am vulnerable, I am truly feeling that. And here I come to you to talk about it.
Okay, so I was just thinking, since the author compares prayer to like eating, drinking water, and breathing, I was thinking, if I do not feel the need to pray, as has been the common theme, and it is for me as well, and that's the very reason of this discussion, is because we do find it troublesome. And I was just thinking there has to be something like seriously wrong with me if I do not feel the need to pray. Like if I don't feel the need to eat, I have an eating disorder and I need help. So what is at least the root of this problem, or like what is wrong with me that I find prayer to be troublesome, and that where this question comes from? And I was thinking of this verse. I discussed this with Brother Yusuf a while back, which is, that's verse 45 of Surah Baqarah, which is, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. So, and seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, it is a burden except for the humble. And then in the next verse, it explains who the humble people are, which is, those who are certain that they will meet their Lord, and to him they will return. So it is like, at least the root or the problem of this disorder is, the reason I find prayer to be burdensome, or the reason is like, because I do feel the need to eat, drink water, and breathe, but I do not feel the same way, at least the way author describes it should be the same, is because one, I'm not certain that I'm going to meet my Lord, and to him that I will return. So the remedy here, at least the question I want to pose after this is, how do I build that certainty, which is going to be the cure to this problem? And I'm just pose that question to the floor. Verse 45. And seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, it is a burden except for the humble. Those who are certain that they will meet their Lord, and to him that they will return.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. You can speak.
Okay, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. And so I just thought, brothers and sisters, that two things come to mind. One is regarding the passage where we see further down that and being most needy for air in the sorrowful, crushing, distressing, transient, dark, and suffocating conditions of this world, it is only through the window of the prayers that a cautious inner sense and luminous subtle faculty can breathe. Now, to me, it sounds like that you have to have those prerequisites. That if you have a conscious inner sense and a luminous subtle faculty, which is the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if you're able to grasp it through the stages of, I will call it, let's say, how in psychology and in education we have models for growth and development in teaching and learning, as well as in physical, social, emotional, language, spiritual, intellectual developments of us as humans and children. We have a spiritual developmental trajectory as well. And I guess maybe I'm in that dissertation writing mode these days for my education doctorate program. I'm thinking more and more about it, at what is the spiritual nature of the transfer of knowledge between a teacher and their pupil, students, or a professor and their advised graduate students, which motivates them to continue to hold on to that excitement and that inquisitiveness for in-depth study at graduate level, as well as during elementary, secondary, undergrad school, college education. Stay committed to go and get good grades and do the best in teaching the kids. Now, where is that luminosity coming from? Obviously, Allah Ta'ala has said many times in the Quran that I gave you the aql, and I gave you the heart, and I gave you the ruh. So to me, the interdisciplinary kind of, or an interoperative kind of a system is in order here, that we have to have the consciousness about Allah Ta'ala, which is the mindfulness of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and then also the luminosity, which is in my mind, because the author here says faculty. It's a subtle faculty, as Brother Yusuf also said. So, what is that subtle faculty? Are we sensitive enough as a spirit? And if we are, then that means that the trials, the tribulations, the over concentration with information overload. I mean, I'm just thinking about us nowadays in our lifetimes. If most of us are in our 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe, or 20s, um, with our educational level, with our sensitivity to the world and international sort of existence as immigrants and all of that, what does it mean when we see so many and witness so many natural disasters? Are they not ayats for us to recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's written words in Quran are so true, that He's constantly sending us signs both of abundance and also of um, the return and the states in which we might return, either just dying in sleep versus dying in a horrific way through an accident, an injury, or a natural disaster, or through war violence. So it is all destiny, right? But at the same time, regardless of how much we suffer here or how much happy we feel here, if Allah Ta'ala has destined us to get those, are we still remaining cautious of Him? And are we still holding on to His light, His nur? Which is why then we can breathe through prayers, because we know that there's a hearer somewhere. And it's the hearer, because we believe in only one Allah. And hence, man or a woman, growing up, child or boy or girl, young adults, we recognize that each one of our life stages or lifespan developmental stages, decade after decade, might change us because of what life threw at us or how we adapted to it. At the same time, if the inner core, our spirit, is in tune with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is revived by Quran reading and being around circles like this one, the sohbah of people who are God conscious, then perhaps that breathing is not just in one way, it's subtle, it's intellectual, it's spiritual, it's social, and it's also physical, because my physical security from health perspective or from safety perspective is contingent upon my spirit not feeling despair. And so if I don't feel despair logically, then I believe that even if there is delay in khair from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my strong conviction, my iman, or my trust and taqwa comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are there. I am waiting gracefully and patiently as you have asked me to, because you're the host and I'm the guest in this world of yours. And even when I come back to you in heavens, you're the host and I'm going to be your guest, which is why the whole narrative in Quran is around we told you so. we let you know, we showed you signs, right? You are to pray to us. The only one that you are to be afraid of is me. Why? Because Allah Ta'ala is encouraging us to recognize that these um, cautious moments in our lives where we are really in tune with our spiritual existence, despite us arriving at them through tribulations and trials, or at that points in our times when, in our lifetimes, when we are deeply touched by losses or deprivations and health issues and whatnot, negatives. Are we remaining optimistic or not? And I think that's why the prayers are so important. And that's why they are at that interval that they are at, that maybe we do need 5 times or even more the revival of our Iman. And knowing that there is a hearer that I can go to. And honestly, the more I've become sicker, I just had another surgery in July. Another cancer tumor came up. I'm in the middle of my doctoral program. I am working as a mental health therapist. I'm realizing probably my apartments, um, non-living things are going to outlive me. But so long as I'm alive, I want to make sure that I'm not bitter, that I'm not despaired, I'm not giving up on life, because whatever my spirit is, the nur that it is, it's a part of Allah Ta'ala's spirit that He um, put into Adam, and then we are who we are because we are aware somewhere in our existence. We have a home and we have a host that we are going back to. So that prayer and that subtlety, that totally makes sense to me in my life situation right now. And as I talk to non-Muslim clients, as I talk to students or colleagues or friends who are not Muslims, or they are not they are secular, and even Muslims who are not very practicing and not that cautious in their sense, maybe they are, but from our behaviors, we can tell a lot that if you're reading namaz or not, or if it is important to you or not to pay khushu, to get khushu in namaz or not. Are we really subtly aware of our spiritual development? And I cannot claim that I am getting, sort of like a better score in this. I'm just saying in a humble way that each person is progressing towards that subtlety level where they can be in tune with their spiritual existence. And for that, they have to have that prerequisite of being cautious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's omnipotence, as well as that He is a hearer and I'm not just abandoned and betrayed in any way in this universe or anywhere, because my ultimate source of my existence or my transition through death and my eternity is His commands and how He decides for my affairs, albeit I have to do my part in remaining spiritually attuned while I'm on earth. And, you know, I often think about that, what our memories would be like when we die. Do we remember a lot about the earth? How do we remember where we lived? Do we remember what we ate, how we had relationships, what many problems we went through? And I think there are hadith and in Quran too, descriptions that we will remember how some of our earthly life had been. So all of this that is written in this particular third warning makes sense. Even the time.
What happened?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I think I just maybe it is my internet. I'll just wrap up real quick, but I wanted to just point out to this last 2 lines that that a desire for eternal life and was created for eternity and is a mirror of the pre-eternal and post-eternal one, and is infinitely delicate and subtle. So again, that being in tune with our spiritual existence because of our moment by moment life experiences is actually that mirror. That how do we constantly clearly reflect upon ourselves, and also because of our capacities and the strength with which we hold on to our spiritual existence, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have asked us to do, like be patient, do the right things, pray, and be humble, and remember eternity and afterlife and
Thank you.
judgment. that's how we are recognizing that subtlety and that delicacy. That's at least how I understand. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah. Previously, Zarar asked the question from like 2 surahs of Surah Baqarah. So I want to answer that question. So my answer for that question is that you need to develop a proof of the creator. So for example, the way we went it by first, like La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. First, you develop that proof. So for that, you can see all of the creation around you that the creator has put, and you can like get your proof from there. We mentioned the study of rain. We mentioned the study of gravity. For me personally, what works is the Surah Wat-Tini was Zaytun, and by the fig and the olive. The way the creator created the olive and fig, he is the one that created me. And then there is another, I think, ayah or hadith that when the Quraysh asked the Prophet that, like, would there be resurrection? So then there was the ayah that was revealed that, is it not me who made you in the first place? So I am the one who will resurrect you. So through those proofs, I think that we can come to the conclusion that those who believe that, then they are certain that they will meet their Lord and to him they will return. Does sorry.
I have a question. I mean, no, I was kind of thinking about what Aisha Noor said earlier about the question of infinite griefs. And I guess my thought is, from what we've been discussing, if you pray, does that mean you won't have this infinite grief? Like, life will give you some sort of circumstance. So is it your outlook on that circumstance that changed? Because clearly, like, circumstances will continue to happen, because otherwise you're living a very constant life. And I don't know if that's possible. So are we saying that, like, the prayer is kind of a way of looking at that same circumstance differently? Like, it's your outlook that changes rather than the problem. Like, the problems are there, but you might be better able to deal with the problem. Is that what we're saying? I guess.
So how I understand it is that prayer becomes our conclusion, like our offering of a conclusion. So let me expand by it. So as a human being, just on a very physical level, I'm constantly changing, right? My fingernails are growing 1/8 of a centimeter at some rate. My cells are shedding every single moment. And that's just on a very physical level. In a mental, emotional, spiritual level, right? Every day, every moment, I'm undergoing different emotions. In the morning, I might be a little cranky. And then something happens and I'm a little joyful. And then something else happens and my mood shifts. For sure, like every hour, I'm in a different state of being, state of emotion, state of feeling. And the constancy of creation becomes a means for me to constantly also change as well, right? So just as the world is being sort of recreated in different ways, I'm being recreated in different ways. And the more I suppose how I understand is, the more I am able to reflect on, well, who is the source of existence of these emotions? Like, who is the source of existence of this change that's happening to me, to the world? The more I'm able to question that and reflect upon that, then once I'm able to conclude that, oh, the one who is creating me with these feelings is also the same author of the events that are happening in my life, and also the same author of the one who gives me the need to feel happiness and find some sort of solution, right? Gives me the need for some sort of satisfaction, contentment in what I'm seeking. All of them signpost to the same source. When I can find that signposting to the same source, then prayer becomes the means through which I offer that acknowledgement. right? And it's a very sort of physical acknowledgement. I mean, when we go see a play or something, some theatrical show, like at the end of it, no one sits silently in their seat. Everyone gets up and starts clapping. There's a physical component to the acknowledgement of the sort of internal state of being that one goes through. And I guess for me, this makes sense in terms of like, we pray 5 times a day. And I definitely change more than 5 times a day, right? So every sort of active prayer becomes a means for me to offer my conclusion that, oh yes, you are the one that put me in this situation during the afternoon and also gave me the need to, feel happy with it or find some sort of satisfaction in it. So that's I don't know if that is helpful. That's at least what helps me understand. I wanted to also raise a question in a different respect. I guess some of Brother Yusuf's comments had me thinking about this. And I'm curious to hear more about what he might mean by subtlety, but like in the world that we live in, when I undergo grieving, sorrows, or even, more like just everything doesn't have to be super dramatic, right? It can be very mundane, very every day to day. I want something, I'm trying to get something, but there's certain obstacles and I want to find a way to go about it. Or I'm going through a rut, right? The solutions that I find that are constantly sort of proposed to me are very different than the solution that's being proposed in the text, right? At least the solutions that are offered to me through my university are, here are wellness circles, meditations. And even if that's not your cup of tea, like exercise releases endorphins. And then I say, oh, okay, let me exercise. Let me see what these endorphins are, right? And I exercise. Give me an exercise, Sarah. I jog, okay? And at one point, maybe the endorphins kick in, okay? And I say, oh, like, I see what they're talking about. There's something, whether you call it endorphins, I don't know what the endorphins are, but whether you call it something else, whatever terminology, maybe angels arrive, let's say that. But I experienced something that leaves me more happy than I was before I exercised. And I say, oh, I can confirm the truth of this. They said this will help me, and look, now it helps me. Now, my prayers in my day-to-day life, I'm like, 10 minutes left. And it fulfills the need, which is that need of like appeasing guilt, even if it's not to anyone else, but like guilt towards the creator or the sense of obligation. But it doesn't give me endorphins. Like, that's my honest response, right? And if we compare this to other things, like in my life, I'll see like, really like life coaches, right? And they're like big buff people. And they're like, here are 5 steps. Like, you get in the gym. This is so far removed from my life, but and I mean, I get emails for this like on a daily basis of checking, like, here are wellness circles, and we're all, even if we're not in the college atmosphere anymore, like I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was talking about how like time management is actually emotional management, right? Emotion management. And then she said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I try to think of my needs as a human being. She was like, yeah, I need to get into meditation, and we approach meditation as a sort of secular, sort of neutral zone that everyone can do, that everyone can participate, mindfulness. Right? Or even if you don't want to, maybe you're Muslim and you're like, astaghfirullah, I don't do meditation, but I can do yoga, right? Or even if not yoga, I can stretch, and that stretching will help. Like, I don't want to be too long-winded here, but what I'm trying to say is, one, the solutions that are offered to my infinite griefs and my infinite needs and my infinite worries in the world around me are very different than what is proposed here. And when I try them, I say, oh, well, there seems to be something here. There seems to be something that's helping me. So why is that? What is the difference between that and the sort of, why do I feel maybe not the same sort of immediate contentment or satisfaction, let's say, from my prayer? Is it how I approach my prayer, right? And also, I guess this is a third sort of I was just thinking proudly, like as human beings, we're social, we're embedded in a social setting, right? When we see something, when we have a role model and we say, oh, like this person, they exercise every day and look at, they're happy, they're content, they're really thriving. And that example becomes a motivator for us. But when I look at people that pray in my life, everyone's got problems. Everyone. And I'm not saying, the ones that exercise don't have problems, but it's also about like, where do I draw sort of these examples, right, in my life? Because I need examples in my life that can say, oh, okay, I'm on the right path in some respect. So where do I draw those? And maybe that points to, the tree of prophethood and how that plays into my life as well. But those are some of the scattered thoughts I had. Jazakallah. For the generous moderator.
This, yeah, comment. Okay.
So I don't know if it's a question or a statement. I feel like when we talk about these things like prayers, I feel like it's the same with everything, exercises and everything. It's like a rut. You need something different in your life. It's like adrenaline junkies. They do something, they won't get the same excitement if they keep on doing the same thing. They'll do bungee jumping one day, they have to do skydiving the next day because they want to feel that adrenaline rush. It's the same thing with prayers, I feel. Like it's like, I feel this is just what I'm thinking right now. Maybe it's because you have the choice of making that decision. It's not being forced of sort. Like people would go for Umrah and they would feel excited for it. That's why they do it. But it's not the same with prayers because it's something you're not doing it based upon your own decision. It's something you have to do. So I think that's the entire thing. I don't know.
So, for Sister Aisha's question, I mean, thank you for those honest confessions. Now we know who you are. So, I mean, at the end of this chapter, the author is making a comment at the very end. He says, beware, do not say, what are my prayers in comparison with the reality of the prayers? So that question must be so much of a quote unquote natural question that at the very end of this chapter, author is raising that question, saying that, well, amidst you're talking nice, all these 5 warnings and whatnot, it sounds like you're talking about a prayer, but my prayer is so far away from that prayer. And then the author responds saying that because like the seed of a date palm describes the full-grown tree, your prayers describe your tree. The difference is only in the summary and details. Like the prayers of a great saint, the prayers of ordinary people like you or me, even if they are not aware of it, have a share of that light. So in that, I guess we should be thinking of it in this way, at least the author is suggesting us to. Yes, especially in our discussions, we are trying to define ideally what it should be like. But of course, I am far from that. But in practice, what should this mean? Should this mean that, since I am far from it, it's unreachable, I'm not going to get to there? But rather, it should be like, this has that potentiality. And at least I can reason about that potentiality to confirm it, which can then give me the enthusiasm to say that, since it has the potential to release all my worries and whatnot, maybe I should put more effort in here rather than anywhere else. Because as you mentioned, the examples, let's say jogging or, I don't know, going to the gym or whatever, consistency is a thing in there. Like doing it half-heartedly doesn't give the same. So how much do I put into my prayer? And how much do I take it serious? Like even if you simply take calling your parents, if I just take it as a obligation and I call versus lovingly calling my parents, makes a big difference for me, but also for my parents. For my voice, they know whether it's just an obligatory call or it's like a lovingly call. So in this sense, in terms of, for example, calling my parents, I should question, why am I doing that? What sort of a need is this going to fulfill? Is just a very dry obligation that I am fulfilling? Or do I feel the love component in there? The obligation is there, but still, I can say that beyond any obligation, it's lovingly I will be doing it. So obligation being there doesn't prevent me to lovingly choose to do it. Like, I think the same thing applies to the prayer as well. Yes, the obligation portion is there, but this doesn't make it mandatory that it's going to be this very dry thing to do, because I have to drink water, yet I enjoy drinking water, especially when I'm thirsty. So like the creator made the creation so that even when doing obligatory things like drinking water or breathing fresh air, joyfully I am doing it. Actually, this is something not to take for granted. The joy we take from doing anything, like when you're running or when you are swimming, when you're drinking water, you get joy, right? But these are obligatory things for you to do, like drinking water, breathing air. The creator put joy in there. This is a mercy. Like he is utilizing me. My creator is utilizing me in looking after this body. So this is why he makes me thirsty, but I am going and drinking water, right? I do some job apparently. He immediately pays me with the joy from this service that I did, because this body doesn't belong to me. This is his property, but I'm looking after that property by drinking water. And he immediately pays me. Like, how beautiful of an employer I do have. Immediately he pays me with the joy of drinking water. Likewise, in the prayer, if I take it as such, I would see that this joy is in there. But I agree, I am doing it last 10 minutes just to do this and that and whatnot. But at least, do I see that in terms of potentiality, the prayer has the potentiality to remove all these burdens from my shoulder? And this is why I think it's a good example that, like, when, let's say, I'm trying to remember what was the most devoted prayers that I had. It was when the earthquake hit Turkey. So when I realize my neediness the most, then I am feeling to knock that door. Those prayers really lifted a lot of burden from my shoulders. So it has that potentiality, but I'm not utilizing it as such. So then this is why I should be working on myself and my prayer so that my prayers start functioning as such. So they don't have to be boring and whatnot. So I agree, they are being boring time to time, and that's why the author is trying to remedy here. So they don't have to. How do you know? Like in my life, here and there are those prayers which I know were so tasty, so beautiful, which shows that it's there, potentially it's there. So there's something missing in me that I am taking all my prayers as such. And that's why the author is showing all different perspectives to say that, oh, try to fix it from that angle, try to fix it from here and whatnot. So, okay.
And I guess we see this in every other aspect of our lives, right? Like if I have to study for a test, a math test, like at first it's difficult solving the problems, but then once I get it, I supplicate to my creator to make it easy for me by studying on it constantly. I can start to enjoy that math, right? I start to enjoy solving those problems the more and more I do it. Or if someone runs the first time, at first they might feel like they're dying, but if they do it every single day or, consistently, that also becomes a supplication, and suddenly they start to enjoy running. So by adding consistency to my prayers, right, and recognizing that it's a seed for the sort of a solution, a potential solution for these things in my life, it also becomes a supplication to become the source of pleasure and satisfaction in my life as well. I mean, and as with everything else in the order of the universe.
Sir, yeah, I like the uh perspective that everybody has shared. I guess I just want to I don't know, make a comment, also maybe ask a question that when do we start getting motivation to make our salat due to the punishment that Allah promised anybody that did not pray? So we know from the hadith of the Prophet that Prophet Islam said on the day of resurrection, the first act that will be judged of man is salat. Now, at what point do we have to start seeing this as a point of motivation? I tell Sarah this, that when I remember this sort of stuff, it's really like kind of inspire me. Like, you know, I don't want punishment of Allah. That is why I do things. I'm not saying we shouldn't really see prayer as a way to communicate to God about what we want, but at what point do we start seeing the punishment that Allah promised those that neglect their salat? Because we also know that Prophet also said the difference between us and those that are non-Muslim is salat, which kind of signify how important to our religion prayer is. Yeah, that's my submission. Thank you.
So you're asking, when do we start seeing the punishment, right?
It seems to me that we're talking in that light. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but the perception about the conversation so far hasn't really touched that. I mean, I'm just saying, it's not even like a question, maybe it's a comment. I'm just trying to, it seems like something, I think we've not been talking about that aspect. That was sort of just to call our attention to. Maybe you can dwell a little bit about
Yeah, my understanding is that we're seeing the punishment in that grief that we're feeling. So I think infinite grief, the infinite aspect, comes from not feeling that there's any sort of resolution to it, that this feeling, this sadness, this grief, it's going to continue perpetually, and that there's nothing that can actually, you know, address it. And that's what kind of leads to that, you know, deep depression. But I think that's the punishment that you're feeling. And similarly, when we're talking about like water and bread, these are kind of, I think we all agreed that these are things that we can clearly see the punishment of not sustaining yourself with these basic nutrients. Your physical body is going to immediately feel that punishment. So it's immediately going to tell you that it's in need. And you could try to sustain yourself maybe with like junk food and like soda, but that's one way to reject. You could reject, you know, God has created this body, and clearly this body is showing me that I need water and I need bread. Bread just, you know, symbolically being you know, a staple of sustenance. So I need these things to sustain myself, but I'm rejecting that. What's catching my eye, what's mesmerizing me, is this soda and this junk food. This is something that gives me that immediate endorphin hit. And so I want to keep going back to that because I want to keep trying these different foods because these are things that are to me like really drawing my attention. But, you know, water seems to be so bland. You know, eating my vegetables seems to be kind of, you know, not that tasteful. So I want something that's going to really be like tasty. So I reject, you know, that those forms of sustenance, and then I keep trying to find it elsewhere. But your physical body eventually is going to tell you that this other sustenance that you're depending upon is not actually fulfilling you. And you're going to start to feel that punishment more and more, and it's going to result in your physical health declining. And that's when you'll realize, you know, I need my body has been created for this sustenance, and I actually need this sustenance. I need this water. I need these basic nutrients in my body. So that is like your physical, that's your physical well-being. Salah is it's addressing your spiritual well-being. And we're doing a similar thing where we are going to these circles, wellness circles, or we're entertaining ourselves, or we're feeling that I'm going to need to talk to a therapist, and all these things are going to address that spiritual need that I have. But really, all these things, maybe they similarly, they give you that hit, but they're not completely addressing that need that you have. And so what continues within you is this lingering need, the spiritual need that you have, that you're not sustaining your spiritual, your spiritual well-being. And so you're also, causing this slow death, this slow spiritual death to yourself. Maybe it's not immediate, but your spiritual well-being is deteriorating continuously as you're avoiding the real sustenance, which is salah. And we know this is the real sustenance because the one who, created, like in the other example, created the physical body, he also created the sustenance for that body. And that sustenance is the only sustenance that is going to sustain that body. He created this spiritual being, the soul, and the only sustenance he has told us clearly that is going to sustain that spiritual being is the salah, is turning to Allah. So these other things might give us, a temporary boost, but it's going to cause that slow deterioration of the soul. And the only sustenance that's really going to actually, sustain you is actually going to the salah. So without it, you're going to continue to feel that perpetual grief. That's the kind of punishment that's maybe, you're able to divert yourself from realizing it, but you're continually feeling that punishment because your soul is not sustained.
Yeah, Peter likes to, always remind me of hellfire, let's say. And I tell him, this doesn't work, man. So I don't know. I just feel that, I mean, it can be, of course, it is one of the, like, like even when the like dawah, or when the prophet was calling people to embrace Islam or to accept Islam, it was like one is like to warn them of the hellfire and one is also to like the promise of paradise and whatever. So it's like it has the two aspects. And I feel like, and I don't know if like this only me, but I think it's in general, if every time you go to prayer, the only reason you do it is because you're afraid that, you're going to be punished in the end, I think at some point, especially if you're not that like the most like the strongest, you don't have the strongest faith or whatever, at some point you will lose this kind of belief. Like you will lose this like, and anyways, I even like as humans, we're always not so worried about something that's going to happen like way ahead, like way far in the future. We think, it's going to happen in the future. When it happens, then I will worry about it. So this is one thing. Another thing I think about, like, imagine you're getting up for prayers and then starting your prayers with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And the only thing in your head is that this God is making me pray. And if I don't do this act, he will send me to hellfire. Like, there's something wrong here. Like there's some kind of contradiction. How is he Rahman Rahim? And at the same time, if I miss it, if like I'm so tired in the morning, I switched, I snoozed my alarm until the sunrise, and I didn't get up for prayers, then he will send me to hellfire. Like it doesn't make sense. I don't know, but like it just doesn't work. So I feel like the motivation to pray is to recognize the need for prayers, at least for me. Like that's why we were discussing here. Like people are praying, but why? That's the question. Why is it such a big deal? Why do we have to pray every day and 5 times a day? Why is it so important for the believer to pray? I feel that's what a discussion about. But yeah.
I just want to defend.
So just a very quick note, just to highlight what Muhammad Sial said, since he is very quiet, maybe what he said might get lost. So as we are reading the message of Quran, when Quran talks about paradise and hell, it starts here. So all those punishments and rewards are describing what we're going through in here. What is going to come after we die, what we are experiencing right now is the news of what will come next. So all the depression, as Muhammad Sial was saying, all the hardships that I am experiencing because of me not praying is already, if you like, the first fires of hell, which is just now touching my skin. So it's already here. When Prophet and Quran talks about hell, just look where the hell is in your life right now, which will become the first and foremost evidence that more is in the making. So this is why, if rather than saying that, oh, they are going to burn me in the afterlife, this is why I should pray, just look at your moment. If you are somewhat living like hell sort of a life, and to a certain extent, everybody might be having this, to whatever extent hell is already in your life, to remedy it, how will I solve that problem? It's a very practical problem then, right? Then prayer will come and remedy the hell that I am right now living in, and eventually it's going to remedy the other hell that will come. But this is the news of what is to come next. So this is why detaching heaven and hell from the life that we live in would make it, as Sister Sarah was saying, would make it less motivating, or even sometimes, especially in this day and age, one would argue against it. But if you see that, well, Quran is describing me actually, the more prayerless I am, the more I think that my, I don't know, success or driving a better car is going to satisfy me, this and that. I find myself in a infinite loop of dissatisfaction. This is the hell that I started experiencing here. So Rasulullah was right. Like lack of prayer is punished with hell of dissatisfaction here. So how do I remedy this? Then becomes the question. So in this sense, I guess the two conversations are converging. Yes, punishment is there, not there after the grave only, here also. And I do experience this. And Rasulullah says, yes, would you like to remedy it? Pay attention to your prayers.
And also the first few, like the ayahs that you refer, if my memory not misleading me, the first set of ayahs, they talk about the end of the world, not directly hellfire. It talks about, how things will be destroyed or is being destroyed, how skies will be wrapped up, how, the mountains will be crumbled and so on and so on. So it is about the ending world. And it is, again, for today, in this moment, everything in my life being destroyed. As author says, everything is departing. So you experience end of the world in your moment, in your daily life. And that what these ayahs are actually talking about. They are not necessarily talking about a future event. It says, like, every moment in your life, you look at these mountains and you realize that they are temporary. They will be destroyed. Every moment you realize that.
In my defense to what Sarah said, I didn't talk alone about punishment. I usually tell her that as a Muslim, we should be living between the middle of two. Allah promised a lot of good things that will happen to Muslim, in this life and the year after. So we should believe it. We should be longing for these things. And like Brother Yusuf said, we should also be like trying to experience and think about how these things manifest in our life. But at the same time, we should also know that as much as Allah can give us all these good things, it can also punish us if we do anything bad. So I told her that as a Muslim, I think we should be careful, like we should be between these two, not just thinking about punishment of Allah. That is wrong. Allah is not like looking at us and trying to catch us if we make any mistake. No, that's a wrong assertion of Allah. But at the same time, if you think about like relaxation, enjoyment every time, I think there'll be laxity. They're gonna be become a little bit lazy. But you don't think about the fear too much. You don't think about the enjoyment too much. Like you be between the two. That is what I told Sarah. But I maybe what I stress the most is I think people all usually think most about the enjoyment and like what was it called? Yeah, this other good side. But I think we should be mindful of both. That is my conversation with Sarah. Yeah.
Sister Aisha Noor has one last comment.
I think I'd like to quickly answer or just make my reflection around prayer very quickly. If you look in Quran, I just did a little
Can you
bit
do
of
it like briefly? We don't have a lot of time.
Sure, yes. It's about in Quran we have rise for prayer, take care of your middle prayer, establish your prayer, direction of the prayer, prayers of the Anbiya. So I think that the reminders for the believers is already indicated as the emphasis for the prayers. And then, of course, in hardships and in times of severity, when we feel that our iman is probably going to become even more compromised, prayer is almost to me, not almost, but is that life jacket that you can wear, spiritually speaking. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Jazakallah. Sister Aisha Noor.
It's 9:10, so you have 10 minutes over time.
No, I just what the brother was saying made me think of, and I think that's what he was referring to as well. Like this, it's a popular, I guess, statement within the Islamic tradition of the believer's two wings are of hope and fear, right? And the hope is that our Creator will always face us with His absolute mercy, and the fear is that no matter how much I might acknowledge Him and try to live in consciousness of Him, it will never fully, it's not a transaction, right? It will never fulfill the amount of sort of bounties and sustenance that He constantly gives me. But prayer, I guess, again, becomes a means of recognizing that the needs of my spirit and the needs of my heart will be given security, will be given sustenance, and are being given sustenance by the one who has created them in the specific way that they are. So it becomes a sort of thanks and recognition, I guess, that just as we, to keep in our memory something, we might repeat it every day. Prayer then also becomes a sort of a constant cultivation of that mindset, inshallah.
Thank you for your comments. So we finished the, I think, second warning today, and we'll inshallah continue from the third warning next week. Subhanaka la illam malana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim wa akhiru wa dana wa anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakallah.